Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, we're going to attempt a top-down repot. I've just come off a long weekend of workshop with Minnesota Bonsai Society, a full weekend. Lots of great trees coming out of the workshop, and got me so pumped to continue to work on bonsai. And I thought, I should probably just work on something today after a big weekend, something light, and just work on a couple of trees. But then I watched my good buddy up in Canada, Nigel Saunders. So Nigel just turned 60 this year, and a group of friends got together and got a tree for him that he'd been eyeing for a long time. And he decided to start work on that tree just in the last couple of weeks. And it's such a big tree and such a big pot, and it's so hard to work with just one person. There's a new method of repotting that a guy by the name of Tom Fincer displayed at the BSOPs Farm to Table special out on the West Coast. So Andrew Robeson and Jonas Dupuis out there, they brought all kinds of professionals together and all kinds of people who grow trees out in farms. And this Tom Fincer has been repotting big trees like this one from the top down, instead of creating all kind of damage and getting bare roots, risking a bare root on a pine, especially pine trees. And so Nigel's given this a try with his Scots pine. So Nigel, I can't wait to see the progress with your tree. So I thought, this tree, it's been in tough shape. Now, let me say right on the get-go, my mind thinks that this tree is just struggling so much it's just going to go away. So I'm going to try something drastic and give it a whirl, because I don't know if this tree has a good chance anyway. And so if I top-down repot this tree, I can create hopefully as little damage to the roots as possible here in the middle of summer. It's not a good time to repot, but I want to see what's going on with the roots down there and what they look like. But instead of taking a root rake and some tools and just chopping at it, we're going to use the hose, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of some of this dirt from the top down. So if you want some more information about this, watch the link down below in the description here of this video. I put the link on from Tom Fincer's presentation out at the BSOPs Farm to Table. And check out the Farm to Table podcast from Andrew Robeson and Jonas Dupuis. I've talked about it on my show before. On Bonsai Tonight's website, they have their podcast. And Andrew and Jonas talk about this a little bit on their podcast as well. And a lot of people are talking about this new method. So it's brand new to me, brand new to Nigel, brand new to Tom Fincer, although he's been doing it for several years now. He's got a lot of pictures to show his success. This tree needs a miracle. I'm hoping this is the miracle. We're going to go ahead and do a top-down repot. So first, I'm going to go find a place that I can make a complete muddy mess and not worry about disturbing the main parts of my yard. So we have to move this beast with my pull cart into a place that we're just going to make an absolute mess. So I hope you stick around and watch. So the problem with really big trees is they're really big, and they're really heavy. And so I'd like to applaud Nigel for being able to make it look like he is He-Man when he put his tree from up there on his watering tank down onto there. He didn't grunt and groan too much, and his back seemed to not give out. But I know that was a heavy tree. And I know that was a heavy tree because I know how heavy this one is. So all I can do is angle it and then twist it up. A beast of a tree that we have to find a place to make a mud hole. Where's my cameraman when I need him? an old crate bottom that I had actually made into a box for a big tree before, that's positioned at a nice angle. It'll just run down away from me if I can get this close enough to it. We can transfer the tree. Okay, that went pretty good. It's in position. Now we need the hose. So I'm not going to begin to think that I know what I'm doing here. This is an experimentation from a video that I watched with Tom Fincer and Nigel Saunders. So the tree is in tough shape. If it dies, I'm going to only blame myself for maybe the not proper care for the tree from the get-go. But this was a nursery find, relatively inexpensive. One of my most expensive discount trees I bought. But it had such a beautiful wide trunk. Look at this trunk. And it just keeps going downhill, and I don't know why. So when trees go downhill and you don't know why, you get a tree from a new person, you know, repot it. Even if it's not the best time of year, you can repot it to see what the roots are looking like. Maybe just kind of get a fresh start. But it's struggling. But there seems to be a lot of life to it. It's pliable, there's green, there's back budding, just not very much of it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to repot this from the top down. So as I understand this new phenomenon that's going through the bonsai world, is that we're going to get rid of all the soil about halfway through this pot. Now it's a really huge pot. I would need help to do this on my own. So instead, what Tom Fincer has done is taking trees that have been growing in the ground in a sack, you know, burlap sack type root system where they put it in the ground and let it grow in the ground for 3, 4, 5 years. And his video showed one that was 3, 4, 5 years in the ground, and it's thick and just amazing. And they let a lot of runners go to get the trunk really thick, just one or two main runners, and they cut the rest of it back a little bit, and it thickens up that trunk. So great video as a reference for you. For me, all I'm going to do today with you, and this is going to take hours. I promise I won't film every single minute of it. But we're going to go ahead and instead of taking a root rake and trying to get through all of this, I'm going to grab my pretty softly rounded metal chopstick, like Tom actually recommended, and some water. And we're going to use the jet propulsion spray nozzle choice, and we're going to get all of the dirt gone. As much as possible. So we'll have to tip this thing over a little bit, use my hands to scrape the dirt away, and we want to get rid of as much soil as possible and start to expose the roots up top. And so the general idea with this is that we're going to get rid of half of the soil, and then we're going to fill it back up with I'm going to use a lot of pumice and some akadama, mostly pumice, and we're going to put that mixture in here, and then it's going to have a really good bonsai substrate for the top half of the tree, and hopefully we'll promote a lot of fine feeder roots on that level of the root structure. And then you leave the bottom untouched, intact. So that means we're not doing a full repot. We're not even trimming any roots in this session at all. As a matter of fact, the only damage to the roots we'll cause is just from my chopstick, and the water won't create much damage. We're going to go ahead and just free it up, put some soil in there, and then we're going to leave it in there for probably the next 2 years or so. Tom Fincer said 2 to 3 years. Now, I hope this thing just survives. So we'll keep it in this pot for the next couple years to just get all this new growth, hopefully, and make this tree a nice tree down the road. So we need some water, I need my chopstick, and then we're going to start digging into this thing. So I go turn on the water, find my chopstick, and we'll be back in a click. I have the power on, or the water flowing I should say, and I have my chopstick. So normally in a repot, we'd be going like this, out of the pot, we'd be getting rid of all the soil, and working our way, telling people to find that radial root pattern, and trying not to disturb too many roots, and then we prune off some roots. So for this repot, we're not going to take off anything except for the dirt, and then fill it with some bonsai soil. So I know it's a little loose around the edges, so I knew I could get a little bit of some of this substance out here before I make a complete mess. So again, I want to remind people who are watching today that this is an experiment. This is emergency surgery for this tree, and likely could destroy the tree only because there's just not a lot of foliage on this tree, not a lot of life to this tree, and I'm not entirely sure why. This was a nursery find in a discount section, so they were getting rid of it, not sure why. And I would never get this out of this pot on my own. I would have to cut the pot completely out, and then I'd have to dig away and repot this thing. So we're going to go ahead, after just a little bit of futzing here, and we're going to go ahead and turn the water on, and we're going to start getting rid of this soil slowly but surely with water. And I have this on a little bit of a hill in the back corner of my yard where my blue spruce is. And so if I make a mess back here, it's not going to be quite as detrimental to our eyeballs. Because I was thinking about doing this right in the middle of part of my yard where there's a hill, but then that would just be a big mess. So there, we already got some dirt out. It's coming out really nice. And I already can see there are just a boatload of roots here. I just don't know if they're viable and what's going on here. Let's go ahead and get some water on this thing. So after first spray, we are certainly getting rid of some of the dirt. We'll be able to keep working down on this, and there's water coming down here as well, down the drain hole, so that's good. But a pot that's this full and this big, the water might be just going down the cracks of the big pot, and who knows if the middle of this pot is even getting wet. So what Fincer said in his video is that he's taken some trees like this and he's soaked them overnight. He's actually soaked them in water overnight to make all the roots really nice and wet, and so that he wouldn't break as many roots, they wouldn't be dry and brittle. And so he was not afraid to just soak this overnight. So we've got a lot of water that's going to come in here. It's going to come and go, and we're going to get rid of a lot of dirt and just keep working on this. So bringing the camera in tight for you all, this is the first few minutes of going through this pot. Now look what I'm finding in this pot. All kinds of rocks. And down below, it's looking more like rocks and clay. And this is, you know, really not a superb substrate for this tree, although the rocks provide a little bit more drainage, I suppose, a little bit more aeration. But we have an absolute plethora of roots on this tree, so it's a shame that the tree is not taken off. And I don't see a lot more foliage with all this root structure. But I also have a lot of roots that have been broken off or cut off. I mean, there's some stuff here. There's this layer here that's been cut off, and I don't know if those were branches of this tree at one point that I cut a couple off, or what was going on. So we have a lot of these chunky roots up here that I think I'm just going to cut off today and get them closer and cleaned up a little bit here. So we're not even close to being done, and I had mentioned to you earlier on that this could be hours. Tom Fincer mentioned that he worked on some trees for multiple days, and when he takes a break, he puts a wet towel over this, and then he'll leave the wet towel in overnight, and then he'll go work on it the next day. And he's worked for 6, 7, and 8+ hours on a tree just to get this process halfway down a pot. So we do have a lot of clay in here. Looks like some clay dirt and these rocks, and this is not an ideal situation for our trees to be in. And so I hope getting some bonsai soil in here is going to really help. Now, I'm starting to chop a little bit with my chopstick, and again, I was telling you that I don't want to create a lot of damage to this tree because it's going to be stressed enough as it is this time of year with the lack of foliage that I have on this tree. I don't want to create too much damage to these roots. Now, if it was a healthy tree, Tom also again mentions in his video that and you create a lot of damage to some of these roots. If the tree is healthy in general, it's going to recuperate. Those sore points are going to callus up and create even more roots. So as long as the damage isn't too extensive, Tom has not had a lot of detriment from there. There's a part of a bag right there. So this was a root ball in a bag, and then it was thrown into a pot at some point. So who knows if it was going to go from a big tall hemlock in a root bag out to somebody's property, and then they put it into a nursery pot to just sell at the nursery. I have no idea, but that was just remnants of a bag right there. So we're going to continue to spray this thing down. We have a boatload of roots. We do have some of these big chunky things that I will cut off, because like right here, there's a little half-inch stub, a full-inch stub, 2-inch stub. There's stubs on here we'll just clean up just to get a little bit nicer up here. And then all these roots down here, some more bag. All these roots down here will be then just tucked away in some bonsai soil, and we'll hope we'll have a really, really positive recovery to this tree. So more water, and we'll keep at it. I'm about 20 or 30 minutes into the process, and I'm discovering that I'm losing a lot of the dirt around the edge, and I can almost pop this tree right out of this pot right now. But I don't want to disturb the bottom half of this pot too much, so I have to be a little careful. So what I'm doing is I keep spinning the tree, because I got this side before and it's down to about here, almost halfway down. But the inside of the trunk of the tree, there's still rocks in there. There's a rock, and then there's more stuff up here. So then what I'm doing is I'm using the hose to get the sides, and I have to tip it over to let the gravity make the rocks come down. So if I just go like this now, the rocks just want to settle, you know, heavy rocks just going down. So we'll tilt it over again. Just like that. And as I spray, I can take my chopstick and get some of those rocks gone. There, and like right there, a whole bunch of sand and mud coming out right there, and some rocks as well. Look at that rock, huh? Yeah. So here's halfway. I'm really close to halfway on the edges of this tree. We still have more rocky soil. The tree's getting a really good watering, but we're not disturbing the bottom of the root structure. So we have a little bit more we can get out of here. So my biggest concern with this action right now is I'm not getting the rocks right underneath the trunk of the tree. So when Tom put his trees in the ground, he had put a plate or a disc underneath so the roots would all grow out flat. And actually, when he cut off the top part of his bag and he did this water process, he could see actually where that disc came out, and then he took the disc right out of there. And that disc underneath your tree provides the branches to go out, or the roots to go out wide instead of down. So, yeah, so I still have some, inner soil and inner rocks here pretty high up on the trunk of this tree that I don't think I'll be able to get out today with this water method and my chopstick without, again, creating too much damage to this tree. Now, there are a lot of roots in here supporting not very much foliage. So if these roots are viable and this tree can stay alive, I think we're going to be okay with the little damage we might be causing from this chopstick and from the water, which is minimal with the water. But yeah, there's still plenty of soil, if we can call it soil. It's very heavy rock substrate, which means a lot of the nutritious soil this was planted in is probably all kind of wasted away. What's left is the rock and the clay. And so we'll just keep shooting it with water for a little while longer and seeing where we can find an ending spot. How many of these bad boys are down there? So, the positive news so far after doing this is that there looks to be a lot of roots in here that are just fine. And they're alive and they're viable. Now the problem with conifers, pines, if you don't have any foliage, you lose branches. So I have such little foliage up there. Will it be enough to support some growth? And we got still rocks, dirt. There, I can just pull out this rock. So again, I could do this for another half an hour here to get rid of some more dirt. And so we'll keep plucking away. And I think we're close to a part where we can put some pumice in here. So here we're bringing it in close again. And you can see I've got some damage on these roots right here and shucked the skin right off. But it also tells me they're alive too, instead of just black, right? And so some of these little scars, incidental from me taking my chopstick and poking through and trying to get some of those rocks. And then we did cut off a couple of these pokies that were coming out. We've got a little bit of a stub here that was a branch really low. We'll cut that off too. I think I can cut off this section right here. That just won't be needed. And so there's a big root right here. It's growing sideways. All right. There we go. So we can do more of this root stuff later when the tree stays alive, right? Because we don't want to mess up too much with the tree. And whatever is going to keep it alive in the coming weeks, hopefully it will. But we've got so much roots in here now. So much roots that can flare out and get little more feeder roots. And if it survives, right? So getting bonsai soil in here, we won't cut any more. No roots down below in the bottom half of this tank here. We got about half the soil out on the edges, and we're pretty good underneath the tree. But there'll be spots when we actually get this thing taken out of the pot eventually that we can do next. So again, I got a couple of thick knobby things off that wanted to be branches somewhere in the life of this tree. After I brought it home, I'm not sure which ones I might have cut off. But we've got some nice roots that are starting down here that could be the new roots of this tree, right? Got some right here that are really nice and flaring, and a couple down here. And so what they recommended you do too at some stages of this top-down repotting method is he uses twine. Tom Fincer uses twine, and he'll tie some roots together and spread them out so you got this nice spread here and they're not all tangled anymore, because a lot of times in these nursery pots or in a bag it's going to circle around and get all these circular roots, and we don't have anything nice and radial and flaring out. Like this one here is shooting straight up. So I think I'm going to stop with the water treatment. I think that's enough for this tree for right now. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to move this tree so I can put it away from this dark little back alleyway here. And we're going to get some pumice in here and tamping in some soil. And we're going to hope for the best. So we're going to move it here. My hemlock is back in its home. We took out maybe a third of the soil. A third? I think a half is pushing it, but a third. We're definitely down to the halfway part of the pot on the outside edges. But as I mentioned, underneath the pine tree back there, there's still some rocks and dirt, and we didn't get rid of everything. And there are more rocks in here. Everywhere. Lots of rocks. So, our goal here now is, if this all works, one miracle cure for my tree. I hope it just makes this tree want to thrive, and whatever foliage is left on here will continue to push out, and we'll maybe get a few more back buds this growing season, and just hope. I can only hope. The roots are generally in good shape, so we have several live active roots, so it looks really good. I'm not worrying about sorting out the roots with this guy or this repot because I just want it to stay alive, so as least of damage as possible, especially this time of year. So I'm going to go get my pumice and a little bit of akadama. We're going to put a little bit of the large in first around the edges, and then we're going to fill it in with some medium stuff after that, and get some a good soil in here for this layer of roots to really take off. And if this layer of roots can take off and survive, this tree survive, eventually what you do then is you take this pot and you turn it over sideways and you sawzall and you just cut right in half. Now remember, you can only sawzall or cut in half a nursery pot if you know what's up here. And right here we can see there's so much roots up here, we could cut this thing in half and we're probably going to be fine. But we're not going to do that for 2 years. I just want this thing to stay alive at least one more year, and if I know it survives this winter and into next spring and we get a new push of growth, I think we'll be in luck. So let's get some soil in this guy. Tom Fincer recommended in his video 2/3 pumice, 1/3 akadama. Now, I've ordered a lot of soil this year, and most of the MBS club members that I've been able to provide some soil for, or even my old trees, don't use a lot of the large. So I'm using a combination here of 2/3 akadama, or 2/3 pumice, and 1/3 akadama of my large granules, and I'm going to put that in first to go down the side. And so the recommendation was to go ahead and tamp down that soil like we would with any repot to get rid of some of those air pockets. And let's do it the fast way. Now typically if I collect a tree, if I'm collecting the larch that I've collected and some of the spruces, and a lot of people who seem to collect Yamadori trees are going to use a lot of pumice. And so pumice is one of the main ingredients for kind of healing up that tree, getting it ready to work on in a couple of years. So that's enough of the large. Now I've got my medium. The hope here is that this is going to be a really good, well-draining soil for these roots that are on the top half of this tree. The bottom half. The question was asked at the farm to table special about root rot when you're watering so heavily. And the bottom of the tree is nursery soil or soil from the ground if it was a ground grown tree. And does it hold its moisture too much and you have too much death there? And the answer was no, he has not seen a problem with that at this stage. And again, he's got a lot of trees to prove his success, a lot of pictures. He shows several of those pictures on the video. Again, that video is linked in my description along with Nigel Saunders' video on his 60th birthday present, Scott's Pine, that he did this same process with. My hope, of course, that all this work isn't for naught and this tree perishes here very soon. But we're going to go ahead and take very good care of this as we've been trying to all along. We've got a really nice bonsai soil in down to here now. Really good quality akadama and pumice. And then mostly pumice on the top here with just a little bit of lava rock sprinkled in there as well. And so we're going to go ahead and give this thing one more dousing of water and just make sure it's really watered through and through, and it'll just drain out there. And we have a tree that's hopefully ready for revival. Now we have it in mostly shade. It'll get a little bit of afternoon sun, and so it's not going to be too stressed out here over the next couple of weeks of hot July weather. And it's going to stay here probably for the duration. Might give it a little more sun in August just to see, and we can push out some more growth hopefully. Oh boy, this is an experiment. Any tips? Anybody have some ideas? Always send them my way. Never afraid to look at those tips and to incorporate them as well. So, you know, hopefully this isn't a sad ending. I've had too many of them this year, but this thing has got some really good soil in it now. We really didn't disturb too much of the roots. We didn't cut any root tips off. We just cut a couple of the clunky branches down here. If this thing survives, I will be so happy, because this root flare down here, or this trunk nabari down here, and this gnarly old looking trunk is so pretty, and I just hope it can survive. So let's get it one more watering and say goodbye. One of the concerns when I buy a big nursery store tree like this in a great big pot, 20, 30 gallon pot, or number 20 pot, or whatever they call them, is that when you water a tree, like I was watering this one, does the water just go down the sides and out the drain holes, and you never really water what's in the middle or in the bottom part of this tree? And so is that why it didn't do well? Did I not water it too much? Or just because I was worried about that, did I overwater it? So with this new method, you know, whether this tree survives or not, I'm still going to be happy that I learned how to do it for the next time I find a really gem of a tree at the nursery store, and I'll buy it knowing that I can take it home and top-down repot a tree and hopefully have success. Now, if this miracle emergency surgery works, oh my gosh, keep your fingers and toes crossed for me. That would be fantastic. But I wanted to try it. I learned the style or how to do this now, and I can do it for the next tree if I have to. But we're going to hope that this one survives. So I've got some water in here, and we're really, really well saturated now. We've got water coming out of the drain holes. I'm going to give this a little bit of fertilizer before I'm done, and so we can get those roots that really haven't been touched too much to maybe soak up some nutrients and just give this thing a boost, hopefully a little boost, and to continue whatever's green on it to keep getting greener. It's pretty sparse, I know. So that's going to do it. Hey, thank you so much for watching, and I have all the links down in the bottom for Nigel Saunders and for Tom Fincer's video if you want to check out this process. Very interesting stuff. It seems to be the rage. Everybody wants to try it right now, so I thought I would too. Hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and I hope I see you very, very soon with a positive update. All right, take care, y'all.